Welcome to Doheny Memorial Library for the 2018 USC Libraries Scripture Ceremony. I can't believe it's 2018. I am delighted to welcome so many of our library's longtime supporters, new friends, and all the writers we are here to honor this evening. Scripture is celebrating its 30th birthday, and whether it's your first Scripture or your 30th, I am grateful to everyone who has supported this fine, enduring Trojan tradition. In fact, Scripture is older than some of our guests who are here with us this evening. The USC Libraries presented the very first Scripture Award in 1988. In the years since, many of our USC trustees have celebrated with us in support of Scripture and our libraries. It is my great pleasure to begin our program tonight by introducing our trustees who have joined us for this 30th year. Would you please stand as I call your names and remain standing, and this is really important, so that we can recognize you as a group. That does not mean clap after every name. It means recognize you as a group. I'd like to begin with Mrs. Suzanne Dworak-Peck, Mrs. Gloria Kaufman, Mrs. Kathleen McCarthy-Kostlin, who also serves on the library's Board of Counselors, and her husband Frank Kostlin, Mr. Chris Popovich, Ms. Amy Ross, and Dr. Ronald Sugar and his wife Valerie, who also serves on the library's Board of Counselors. Now, please join me in welcoming our USC trustees and their guests. In fact, you did that so well, we're going to do it again. Several members of USC's senior administration and my fellow deans have joined us for this special anniversary. Would you please stand as I call your names and remain standing so that we can recognize you as a group? USC Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, Michael Quick. USC Vice Provost for Academic Operations, Mark Todd, and his wife, Michelle. Yes, she does have to stand up. Thank you. Mr. Daniel Stimler, Vice President for Auxiliary Services, and his wife, Megan. See what happens when you clap out of turn? The baby cries. Oh. Dean Elizabeth Daly of the USC School of Cinematic Arts and her husband, James Hindman. And Dean Marilyn Flynn of the Suzanne Dworak-Peck School of Social Work. Please join me in welcoming members of USC Senior Administration, deans, and their guests. And as we say in chamber music, one more time with feeling. The USC Libraries Board of Counselors has been an invaluable source of support for me and for this event. Scripture would not have grown to the magnificent occasion it has become without the commitment of our board members, many of whom are here this evening. Would you please stand as I call your names so that I can introduce you? Mr. Joel Prell, Chair of our Board of Counselors, and his wife Cheryl. Mrs. Lisa Barquette and her husband Bill. Mrs. Cynthia Baseman and her husband Neil. Mrs. Linda Cassidy and her husband Dr. George Cassidy. Mrs. Patsy Dewey. Okay, I agree with that one. Mrs. Sally Edwards and her husband Dr. Thomas Edwards. Mrs. Carol Fox. Mr. Leonard Fuller and his wife Linda. Mrs. Daryl Ann Giardino and her husband Mark. Mrs. Bridget Glass Keller and her husband Paul. Mrs. Ann Hill. Mr. Yoshi Hankawa and his wife May. Mrs. Gloria Kaplan. Mrs. Kelly and Ladd Gatti and her husband John. Dr. Julie Miller and her husband Marvin. Mr. Todd Oakham and his wife Lori. Mr. Bob Sattler, you let one person do it, and everybody wants to do it. Mr. Bob Sattler and his wife Sandy. Mr. Glenn Sonnenberg, who co-founded Scripture in 1988, and his wife Andrea. All right. Mr. John Summers and his wife Leslie. And Mrs. Jennifer Sparks Taylor and her husband Topper. Please join me in thanking our board members, several of whom served on the committee that helped create tonight's 30th anniversary event. I think we're going to have fun tonight. You are a good crowd. I'd also like to take a moment to remember someone who is not here this evening. Sadly, Bob Plumley passed away this past December. Bob and his wife Betty were terrific and spirited supporters of USC Athletics and the School of Dramatic Arts, and they attended so many different activities across our university. He was a tremendous friend to our libraries and our Scripture Award, as well as to me personally. Along with being a proud Trojan, Bob was a larger-than-life personality, and with his sense of flair and love of custom-tailored suits, particularly those with a Trojan palette, he was a memorable presence in any room. Exactly. Well, I am so pleased that Bob's son-in-law, David Courtney, and his wife, Beth, were able to join us tonight. It just would not be Scripter without a member of the Plumley family in the room. Thank you so much for joining us, David and Beth. Throughout the evening, you'll be meeting several talented Trojan scholars and artists among our student body. You've already encountered 20 of them as the Trojan Marching Band played us into the room. Let's thank the Spirit of Troy and Dr. Art Bartner for delivering such a rousing start to our celebration. Woo! And for those of you who said to me, I don't remember the Trojan Marching Band doing this before, they haven't. This is part of our 30th anniversary celebrations. So thank you, Art, for helping us do this. And you probably did not recognize one of the pieces they performed. That's because it is a brand new commissioned composition by one of our Thornton School of Music students. Senior Robert Alexander composed that fanfare in honor of Scripter's 30th year, and I'm grateful that he has shared his talent and musical vision with us to mark this special occasion. Exactly. I didn't know I was going to have a Greek chorus this evening, but it's great. Robert, would you please stand so that we can thank you for that wonderful composition? Right back there. As many of you may know, the very first Scripter Award went to Helene Humph and Hugh Whittemore, the author and screenwriter of 84 Charing Cross Road. To be sure, 30 years ago, times were, I think it's safe to say, they were different. We have in our library's collections a great deal of documentary evidence about how the 1980s played out on our campus. Hair was taller and more feathered, shoulder pads were wider. We know from the 1988 edition of the El Rodeo Yearbook that President Zumberg was enthusiastic about the upward trajectory of the university on the national and international stages, that students were excited about the construction of the new bookstore building in the Lions Center, and that finally, in 1988, Doheny Library installed air conditioning. He was a little early on the cheering, but yeah, we all cheered when Doheny got air conditioning. Those were not the only differences between the 1980s and today. Back then, USC had a library degree program on campus. Today, we have a flourishing online program in partnership with the Marshall School of Business. One of our first honorees this evening graduated from our earlier program and is one of our most devoted library supporters. Mrs. Valerie Sugar represents so much of what it means to work in libraries today. After earning her master's degree in librarianship, Valerie held positions as a librarian and also worked to develop software. I know how deeply she cares for our special collections, particularly our collection of artist books, and she also supports science and technology scholarships through the Achievement Rewards for College Scientists, or ARCS Foundation. With her love of books and her appreciation for technology, her expertise as a librarian and passion for science education, Valerie embodies the multifaceted contributions of libraries and librarians to public life, scientific and creative achievements, and successful careers. I'm extraordinarily fortunate that Valerie has served as a member of the library's Board of Counselors and its predecessor, the Friends of the USC Libraries Board, since 2005. I value her insightful questions and thoughtful advice, and I'm grateful that Valerie remains so engaged with the future of our Trojan libraries. Much like his wife Valerie, Dr. Ronald Sugar has demonstrated repeatedly and passionately his commitment to the intellectual accomplishments of our students and to providing the technology and information resources they need to achieve their ambitions. Ron held President, Chairman, Chief Executive Officer, and Chief Operating Officer positions at Northrop Grumman and lends his expertise to many business and philanthropic organizations, including Apple and the Boys and Girls Clubs of America. As a USC trustee and holder of the Judge Whitney Professorship in Management and Technology, Ron exemplifies the ideal of the dedicated Trojan. I am thankful and honored that Ron has focused so much of that dedication on supporting our libraries as we work to support the continuing rise of our university. Among the many Trojans who value what Ron and Valerie have done and continue to do for this university is President Nikias. He couldn't be with us this evening, but he has sent words of congratulation and appreciation by video. Let's watch.
This year marks a milestone for Scripter. 30 years of honoring the very best films inspired by the written word. Over 3 decades, Scripture has become a USC tradition and a wonderful reflection of our commitment to creativity. Ex Libris is our way of celebrating the remarkable Trojans who embody the spirit of discovery and creativity. It's our chance to honor the best among us. Valerie and Ron Sugar are the perfect honorees tonight. They have a long and distinguished history of supporting USC Libraries and a deep and abiding love of books. Valerie and Ron's passion for books and libraries has been lifelong. Valerie graduated with a master's degree in library science from USC and has been very active in the Friends of the USC Libraries for more than a decade. Ron, on the other hand, with his engineering background, has been visionary in advancing the libraries' focus on technology. Together, they endowed the Valerie and Ron Sugar Dean's Chair of USC Libraries. Valerie and Ron, Nikki and I wish we could be there with you tonight, but please know that we are with you in spirit. So on behalf of the entire Trojan family, we thank you for your generosity and devotion to USC Libraries. Congratulations and fight on always.
Thank you, President Nikias. As the President said, Ron and Valerie endowed the USC Libraries Dean's Chair. I've now been a part of the Trojan family for more than a decade. I can hardly believe that. It actually has been more than a decade. And to be the inaugural holder of the chair that bears their names is one of the signature moments of my time here. I could not be more proud or more grateful. Everyone at the library strives to honor the charge Ron and Valerie gave us when they endowed the chair, to support a vibrant community of critical thinkers, seekers of knowledge, and engaged world citizens for many generations to come. Those words, the spirit of Valerie's and Ron's generosity, and their commitment to the libraries inform what I do as a dean and a librarian and inspire me every day. Valerie and Ron, if you'll please join me on stage. On behalf of the USC Libraries Board of Counselors, I'm honored to present to you the 2018 USC Libraries Ex Libris Award.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine. What a special honor it is for Valerie to be recognized tonight. It turns out Valerie has done almost all the heavy lifting, and she's the brains of the operation, but she said I had to speak. She doesn't like to speak. We both feel a bit unworthy. The last 2 Ex Libris honorees were truly giants, Elaine Leventhal and Kathleen McCarthy. Elaine and Kathleen are 2 amazing women who have been so very special to USC over the years. Thank you for all you've done, Kathleen. Valerie and I really treasure our association with USC and with the USC Libraries. The libraries are an essential underpinning of the mission of this university. And as the university grows and evolves to meet a world of social and technological change, so must its libraries. Catherine, you and your team have provided more than a decade of innovative leadership to advance, modernize, and expand the reach of this precious academic resource. Valerie and I have also been so impressed by things such as the creation of the Sidney Harman Academy for Polymathic Study, by the creation of the Online Master of Management and Library Science program, and the creation of the USC Digital Repository, to name just a few of many examples. It has been fun for both of us, particularly Valerie, who is a USC Library School alumna from way back, to play a small role in your remarkable progress. Valerie and I could not be prouder of our association with you, the USC Libraries, and every member of the Trojan family in this room with us tonight. Thank you so much for this special honor.
Congratulations again, Valerie and Ron. It is of tremendous credit to scripter committees over the years that we have recognized many, many writers whose works have enriched, critiqued, and helped shape the creative landscapes of cinema and literature. Tonight's Literary Achievement Award honoree continues, and I would say extends that tradition in a vivid and memorable fashion. It is a rare achievement for a creative artist to have imagined so many stories and characters that connect with audiences so thoroughly and so persistently over such a long period of time. More specifically for us, it is even more remarkable for that artist to have made such a sustained and profound contribution to the art of cinematic adaptation. The Godfather saga, adapted from the novels by Mario Puzo, is only one such contribution created by tonight's honoree. He adapted the screenplay for Patton from a biography and a memoir. Apocalypse Now from the Joseph Conrad classic Heart of Darkness. The Outsiders and Rumblefish from the novels by S.E. Hinton, and episodes of the children's series Fairy Tale Theater from the story of Rip Van Winkle. Bram Stoker's Dracula from the vampire novel of the same name, and The Rainmaker from the novel by John Grisham. And that is certainly not an exhaustive list of his accomplishments. In the late 80s, when the library's board was conceiving of scripter, they aimed to honor writers with just such an expansive vision, a love of literature, a respect for writers working in other forms, and the talent and drive to transform the printed word into cinematic experiences. Certainly tonight's honoree splendidly exemplifies those ideals. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our 2018 USC Libraries Literary Achievement Award winner, writer, director, and accomplished literary adapter, Francis Ford Coppola.
Thank you so much. I swear that Trojan song sounded like the Captain from Castile, a movie I saw when I was a little kid in the 50s. Am I right or am I wrong? Well, we'll find out. I have a very good musical memory, and that sounded like Captain from Castile to me. Who knows? No one here, the whole band left. Anyway, thank you so much. I'm very pleased. And I'm happy that you noticed that on all of those films that were presented here tonight, including The Godfather, the name of the author, by my insistence, was always on top. It was Mario Puzo's The Godfather. It was Bram Stoker's Dracula. It was Susie Hinton's Outsiders. And much to his pushback, it was even John Grisham's The Rainmaker, because he never had his name and nor wanted it to be the presenting title. But I was always proud that, and I had a reason. The reason I never wanted my name to have the possessive credit as the director, because I always dreamed that one day when I wrote original material for the screen, it would then say Francis Coppola's, whatever it was, and I did. And so that honors anyone who's adapted screenplays knows that the original author did the heavy lifting, which was really true. Well, you know, I'm an alumnus from across the land here. I'm from UCLA. But, you know, UCLA and USC are really wedded together as the two great film schools of Los Angeles. And years ago, really one of 3 or 4 film schools in the country. When I was first here, there was NYU, and there was UCLA and USC, and there were some others, but CCNY, I think, but San Francisco State actually had a very interesting era in those early days in experimental films. But because of my coming together with my wonderful young friend and really like a kid brother, George Lucas, all of his friends at that period of extraordinary period of USC, George Lucas, Walter Murch, Hal Barwood, Randall Kleiser, Matthew Robbins, Robert Dalva, and I remember always talking about USC and some of the wonderful faculty at that time. The name Ken Mura was always coming up, I remember. So that really was a joining in those early days of American Zoetrope between UCLA and all of the people I've just mentioned, and I'm in USC and UCLA with myself and Carol Ballard. There were only a few of us compared to a lot of them. And I'm sure every class, every year at USC and UCLA produces a wonderful crop of talent, but that was an extraordinary bunch of young, John Milius, I didn't mention him. He was also from USC. And I think that made a permanent bond between the two schools that will really, I hope, in a competitive way, but live forever. So thank you so much. I appreciate this, and let's get now to the real awards.
Congratulations again, Mr. Coppola, and thank you for joining us on this special anniversary. As we celebrate writing as the origin of great visual stories, we also acknowledge that to create pieces of cinematic art on any size screen takes a great number of people skilled in a range of disciplines. Many of our students aspire to careers in the cinematic and literary arts, and of course, many other fields. Our job as an academic research library is to support our students' intellectual and creative ambitions, whatever their course of study. Our provost shares that responsibility on a much, 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 much larger scale. Dr. Michael Quick is our provost and senior vice president for academic affairs, and he holds a professorial appointment in biological sciences. His service to USC is extensive and varied, having worked as director of the graduate program in neuroscience, vice dean for research and executive vice dean at Dornsife College, and executive vice provost and vice president for academic affairs. In fact, Michael was the second person I met when I joined USC. I am grateful that as busy as he is running the academic enterprise of the entire university, he is here celebrating with us this evening. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Provost Michael Quick.
Oh, Catherine, thank you so very much. Thank you all for your applause, even though you have no idea what a provost is. I appreciate it. Truly, though, an amazing introduction, Catherine. Thank you so much. I can't wait to hear what I have to say. A huge happy birthday to Scripter, turning 30 years old this year, and thank you to all of you who have supported this event throughout the years. I know some of you have been here since 1988, and I want to thank each and every one of you for what you do for Scripter and what you do for USC. A big shout out to Howard Rodman and the entire Scripter selection committee. Howard, congratulations, thank you. You all have an impossible job in trying to find the winners, but congratulations to all the nominees. As far as I'm concerned, you are all winners here tonight, except of course those of you who don't win. My congratulations to the Sugars for their Ex Libris Award, and to Mr. Coppola for his award. Thank you for all you do and have done for the written word and for the libraries, for the screen. More than places where students have a space to learn and faculty have collections from which to launch their scholarship, libraries are the core for what we stand for in higher education. Especially in a time when fake news seems to rule the day, libraries represent the unfettered search for truth. And at a time when intellect seems to be devalued, libraries are the repository for all that is great about human thought and creativity. And in a time of great uncertainty, libraries serve as the bedrock from which we will launch the next generation of great leaders in all disciplines. I want to thank the USC Libraries Board of Counselors. I want to thank our dean. I want to thank all of our library faculty and staff for the work they do every day, showing our students that knowledge is true power, that words, no matter how much we may disagree with them, must be honored and valued if we are truly to become a just world. Anyway, my job up here tonight is not to tell you to support your library. Of course, if you don't, may the angels weep for you. My job up here tonight is to introduce one of our amazing USC students, Dominique Corona. Dominique is a senior majoring in theater at our USC School of Dramatic Arts. She has served as the president of the Theater Students Association. She serves as a student representative at both the Institute for Theater and Social Change and the Inclusion and Equity Committee. She's a member of our new Faculty Arts Mentoring Alliance, an interdisciplinary project where students write and produce works in partnership with faculty members. And she's a student coordinator in our Great Arts and Humanities initiative here at USC called Visions and Voices. Please, without further ado, give it up, Dominique Corona.
Thank you. Whew. First feat was not falling up these stairs, and I did it. All right. Thank you so much, Provost Quick, and good evening, everyone. This is actually the first room that I studied in when I got here to USC as a freshman. I carried with me my textbooks that were still in the plastic wrap because with the amount of money that I spent on them, I wanted them to be in pristine condition forever. I felt like I had arrived at last. I spent the next 10 minutes quietly unwrapping my textbooks so that I could actually use them. It was awkward because the sound of shrink wrap really echoes in a room like this, full of quietly studious, scholarly, courageous, ambitious Trojans. That's ingrained in me, just so you know. Awkward as it was, I felt excited and inspired. It's amazing what a beautiful space like this can do to make you feel capable. Of course, Doheny isn't the only library that we have on campus. It's one of, you wouldn't guess it, or maybe you would, 24. Some of my fondest memories are, not surprisingly, of me hanging out with friends and, of course, studying in Levy Library. I've been able to use the classrooms of Levy for a wide variety of things. You wouldn't guess it, but a lot of improv has gone on in those classrooms. Yeah, improv comedy. Arguably the worst kind of comedy and the worst kind of improv, but I did it. Every year for the past 15 years, my improv troupe has held the country's largest collegiate improv festival. We haven't checked that fact for the last 14 years, so it could be wrong. I'm so sorry for not fact-checking at this libraries event, but I just don't want to burst my own bubble. The festival consists of 3 days of panels, performances, and workshops that are led by instructors from the Upright Citizens Brigade. And each year, we are able to use the Levy classrooms for our very different kind of learning experience. And you know what? The library is perfect for improv, just as it is for what you would expect it to be, quiet studying and research. As a student, I'm in our libraries all the time, although I've never seen Doheny quite like it is tonight. And these are the moments, the beauty and the inspiration that I want to keep with me and keep those memories pristine, like my textbooks from freshman year that I opened in this room and I still have because no one wants to buy them from me. But as beautiful as these libraries are, they are so much more than just spaces. Just outside this room is a huge leather-bound book, we call it the Book of Wonders, which shares so much more about what the libraries are about, including a universe of digital research materials Honestly, universe sounds like an understatement. Please consider making a contribution at our Book of Wonders to support our laptop lending program, which helps my fellow students make the most out of these libraries. I can guarantee you that any contribution you can make is going to have an immense impact on a member of the Trojan family. Thank you already to those of you who have contributed, and as recognition, you'll see your names in our honor roll throughout the dinner. I'm going to go over to that Book of Wonders and contribute, and I hope that you will too. But before I do that, it is my honor to introduce two immensely talented fellow Trojan creative artists, vocalist Celeste Butler and guitarist Sam Yoon. You all, I can tell you from personal experience, are in for an absolutely amazing performance. As Dean Quinlan mentioned, Scripter was founded in 1988, so tonight we thought we'd enjoy a couple songs that were at the top of the charts 30 years ago. So, please join me in welcoming Celeste and Sam, who will be performing one of 1988's biggest hits, Faith by George Michael.
Thank you so much, Dominique. We are so excited and pleased to be here. It's such a beautiful event. We were here last year and just so excited to be invited back. We are going to go ahead and play Faith, Sam Yoon. Again, my name is Celeste Butler. If you know it, you can sing along. If you want to clap, you want to groove in your seat, you can do that too. So here's Faith. Well, I guess it would be nice if I could touch your body. I know not everybody's got a body like you, but I gotta think twice before I give my heart away. And I know all the games you play, because I played them too. Oh, I need some time off from that emotion. Time to pick my heart up off the floor. When love comes down with half devotion, it tastes so strong, man, baby, but I'm showing you the door. 'Cause I gotta have faith, yeah, I gotta have faith. Said I gotta have faith, the faith, the faith. I gotta have faith, the faith, the faith. Baby, I hear you saying I stay. Say please, please, please don't go away. Say you're giving me the blues. Maybe you mean every word you say. Can't help but think of yesterday and another who tied me down to the level for blues before this river becomes an ocean. Before you leave my heart there on the floor. Oh, baby, I reconsider my foolish notion. Got no money to hold me, but I'll wait for something more. 'Cause I gotta have faith, yeah, I gotta have faith. Said I gotta have faith, the faith, the faith. I gotta have faith, the faith, the faith. Yeah, this way you can clap right here. Uh-huh. Faith, I gotta have faith. Yeah, yeah. Before this river becomes an ocean, before I leave my heart there on the floor, how free consider my foolish notion. I need someone to hold me, but I'll wait for something more. 'Cause I gotta have faith, I gotta have faith. Said I gotta have faith, I gotta have faith, the faith, the faith. Thank you all so much. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, performing Whitney Houston's So Emotional from the year of Scripter's founding, 1988, please welcome back to the stage vocalist Celeste Butler and guitarist Sam Yoon.
Thank you. inside of me. I keep your photograph beside my bed. Even in a world of fantasy, I can't get you out of my head. I've been waiting for the phone to ring all night. Oh, well, it make me feel so good. I got a love of my own, babe. I shouldn't get so hung up on you. I remember the way that we touched. I wish I didn't like it so much. I get so emotional, baby, every time I think of you. I get so emotional, baby, it's shocking what love can do. Ain't it shocking what love can do? Ain't it shocking what love can do? I gotta watch you walk in the room, baby. I gotta watch you walk out. I like the animal way you move, and when you talk, I just watch your mouth. I remember the way that we touched. I wish I didn't like it so much. Oh, I get so emotional, baby, every time I think of you. I get so emotional, baby, ain't it shocking what love can do? I get so emotional, baby, every time I think of you. I get so emotional, baby, shocking what love can do. Ain't it shocking what love can do? Ain't it shocking what love can do? Ain't it shocking what love can do? I get so emotional, baby, every time I think of you. I get so emotional, baby, ain't it shocking what love can do? 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 Thank you.
Thank you, Celeste and Sam, for two wonderful performances before dinner and after dinner. What a great way to bookend our event. And I'd like to give a special thanks to our board member, Patsy Dewey, for encouraging the addition of musical performances to the Scripter program last year. I agree. It's a wonderful new part of our Scripter tradition. Before we continue, I'd like to recognize someone without whom we would not be gathered in celebration this evening. Mr. Glenn Sonnenberg, would you please stand? As you know, I am half deaf, so I can read lips. I know what you just said. In 1988, when Whitney Houston and George Michael were topping the pop charts, Glenn Sonnenberg and Marjorie Lord Vogt were busy inventing Scripter. Glenn is a former USC trustee and past president of our libraries board, and we owe him a great deal for creating Scripter, helping it develop into the tradition it has become, and for supporting excellent libraries for our students and faculty. Thank you, Glenn, so very, very much. And I know that Glenn does not do this alone, because behind every great man, there is an even greater woman. Thank you, Andrea, for your support and help as well. In fulfilling my duties as Scripter Master of Ceremonies throughout the years, I occasionally have described the rather unique characteristics of my Canadian heritage and the differences between growing up in Newfoundland, an island off the east coast of Canada that is known for its sturdy citizens as well as snowing in June, and living in Southern California, which is basically climate paradise. My sister lives in Northern Ontario. In October of last year, she sent me a picture where you could not see the roof of her house because of all the snow. So I get a lot of visitors in Southern California. I've spared you all those jokes for a few years now, but tonight, I do want to remind you of my connection to our neighbors to the north. That's because we have a number of finalists tonight who share a link to Canada in one form or another. It is now my honor to introduce the clips of our finalists for the Scripter Award for Best Adaptation for Television. Alias Grace is our first finalist for television this year. It is a story of justice and class, of a fictional investigation that yields insights into a historical crime. And the novel and the series were written by a Canadian novelist and adapted by a Canadian writer and actress. I would clap for that. Thank you. Big Little Lies treads the line separating humor and tragedy, and with its unique tone, its writers treat stories of abuse, healing, and friendship with thoughtfulness and rare depth. Showing expansive intellectual reach, Genius manages to terrific effect to blend the personal, earthly life story of a single scientist with a grand narrative of advancing human understanding of the cosmos. The near-future dystopia of The Handmaid's Tale brings to page and screen the Republic of Gilead, where the lives of women are determined entirely by biology and their relationships to powerful men. And the novel was written by that very same Canadian who wrote Alias Grace. The immortal life of Henrietta Lacks captures the history, struggle, and scientific legacy of a woman of color whose very cells, harvested without her consent, have helped treat thousands upon thousands of cancer patients long after her death. And our final television nominee, Mindhunter, integrates scientific discoveries and social science principles from the Academy into dramatic field investigations by FBI profilers. Let's enjoy a few minutes of our accomplished television finalists. You may have noticed that we have 6 television finalists rather than our usual 5, and that's owing to a tie in the voting for this incredibly competitive field. Our group of eligible film adaptations is no less competitive, and in fact, we have 7 finalist films this year. Call Me By Your Name is a coming-of-age story told with touching specificity, a unique and beautiful melancholy, and precisely rendered touches of humor and romance. The Disaster Artist adapts the story of the making of The Room, revealing the strife and the personal struggles behind the making of the infamous film that has captivated midnight movie audiences for years. Lest you think that I had exhausted the Canadian connections, our 3rd film finalist is Logan, which offers a future vision of X-Men members Professor X and Wolverine in a bleak landscape. You might not have known this about Wolverine, but it's proclaimed right there on the left side of the cover of the comic where he first appeared in issue 181 of The Incredible Hulk, that Wolverine is in fact the very first Canadian superhero. It's a library. I think it's important that you all learned something this evening. The Lost City of, I want to say Zed, but I know you won't understand me, so Z, recounts a nonfiction tale of adventure among Amazon explorers and the human toll of generations of expeditions that attempted to solve the mystery at the heart of the story. Molly's Game situates a story of betrayal, sexism, and egos within the sinister world of underground gambling and organized crime. History, Poverty, Race, and Hope set the stage for Mudbound, a tragic and transcendent drama of post-World War II rural Mississippi. And finally, in Wonder Woman, Diana Prince emerges from Paradise Island, just off the coast of Newfoundland, in an origin story that's as thoughtful and nuanced as it is full of action. Let's watch some of the work of our outstanding film finalists. It's nearly time to present this year's Scripter Awards to some very deserving writers responsible for those films and episodes and the written works upon which they're based. To acknowledge all of our writers and the selection committee that did the difficult work of choosing winners from among our outstanding field, it is my pleasure and privilege to introduce the chair of that committee, Sir Howard Rodman. I'm not done. I typically highlight Howard's knighthood when I introduce him, thus the Sir, but this year, Howard has a brand new accolade to add to the many, many recognitions he's received the world over. As part of the 13th Annual Final Draft Awards just 2 days ago, Howard was inducted into their Hall of Fame in recognition for the work he's done throughout his career and continues to do supporting writers and writing. Congratulations, Howard. Beyond his duties as selection committee chair, Howard is a USC professor, screenwriter, novelist, and the former president of Writers Guild of America West. Howard's devotion to scripture and our libraries is such that he has done every single thing that I have ever asked him to do for us over the course of many years. I'm tremendously appreciative of his kindness, his generosity, and his friendship. And now please welcome to the stage, Howard Broadman.
Thank you, Catherine. It was indeed a challenging year for the committee to make such fine distinctions among a really stellar group of finalists. Would the members of the selection committee please stand so that we can thank you for your time, your effort, and your insights? Come on. 7% of Americans believe that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. An equal number think that we never went to the moon. 1/3 of our country rejects evolution. More than 1/3 of us say that human activity has no effect on climate change. Our nation lacks a simple, basic, agreed-upon set of facts. Now more than ever, what a deep pleasure to be in a library. A library is a place where people come to seek wisdom, not programmatically to ignore it. A place of knowledge, not of willed and deliberate unknowing. And a place where truth and fiction happily cohabitate, but on separate shelves. The librarian is wise enough to know the difference. We as Americans would be well served to learn from that example. We're here tonight to honor the art of adaptation. How can you turn a book into a movie? Short answer, you can't. Longer answer, you can't. An unpublished novel differs from a book only in its font and its binding, but a novel differs from a movie in each and every aspect. Medium, how it's made, how it's read or viewed. Turning a book into a movie is like turning page 17 of the Thomas Guide into Pacoima itself. An adaptation, then, is a recipe, an armature, a stock prospectus, a set of architectural drawings, an aspiration, a declaration of intent. To turn a book into a movie requires not just translation, but a leap across a very awesome chasm. It's a leap that all of our nominees tonight have made with wild, daredevil, acrobatic aeronautic success. And it's the kind of success that can change a culture. The following statement is admittedly opinion, not fact, but I'm going to assert that 100% of us in this room tonight believe in Harper Lee's Atticus Finch, and that 100% of us also believe in Gregory Peck. The great adaptation can bring book and film together, and it can also bring us together. I'd now like to recognize all of our 2017 finalist authors and screenwriters, beginning with television. Those of you in the room, please stand as I call your names. Screenwriter Sarah Polley and author Margaret Atwood for Elias Grace. Screenwriter David E. Kelly and author Leanne Moriarty for the episode You Get What You Need from Big Little Lies. Screenwriters Noah Pink and Ken Biller and author Walter Isaacson of the book Einstein, His Life and Universe for the episode Einstein Chapter 1 from Genius. Screenwriter Bruce Miller and author Margaret Atwood for the episode Offred from The Handmaid's Tale. Screenwriters Peter Landesman, George C. Wolfe, and Alexander Wu, and author Rebecca Skloot for The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks. Screenwriters Joe Penhall and Jennifer Haley, and authors John Douglas and Mark Olshacker of Mindhunter Inside the FBI's Elite Serial Crime Unit for Episode 10 of Mindhunter. Let's congratulate all of our finalists in television adaptation. If our film writers would please stand as I call your names, I'd like to recognize you as well for your outstanding work. Screenwriter James Ivory and author André Aciman for Call Me By Your Name. Screenwriters Scott Neustadter and Michael H. Weber, and authors Greg Sestero and Tom Bissell of the book The Disaster Artist, My Life Inside the Room, for The Disaster Artist. Screenwriters Scott Frank, Michael Green, and James Mangold, and authors Roy Thomas, Len Wein, and John Romita Sr. for Logan. Screenwriter James Gray and author David Grand for The Lost City of Z. Screenwriter Aaron Sorkin and author Molly Bloom for Molly's Game. Screenwriters Dee Reese and Virgil Williams and author Hillary Jordan for Mudbound. Keep standing. And screenwriters Jason Fuchs, Alan Heinberg, and Zack Snyder, and author William Moulton Marston for Wonder Woman. Let's congratulate all of our finalists in film adaptation. And now if Dean Quinlan will return to the stage and if Glenn Sonnenberg will join us, it's time to announce our winners. Is that the right envelope? Well, let's find out. And the winners of the 30th Annual USC Libraries Scripter Award for Television Adaptation are The Handmaid's Tale, screenwriter Bruce Miller, author Margaret Atwood.
Thank you very much. The Handmaid's Tale's been very wonderfully and generously feted over the last few months, but there's something about getting an award in a library that is particularly wonderful. On behalf of Margaret Atwood, I'd like to say thank you. She is the mother of us all, and a lot of the people here have the same experience working with an author of a classic who happens to be very much alive is an incredible experience. Having coffee with a Canadian national treasure is not something you get to do very often, and it's quite wonderful. We share this incredible honor with Hulu and MGM, who are bravely making this TV show, and our incredible writing staff, and some of whom are here right there, over there. So thank you very much. Thank you to the USC Libraries. We really appreciate this. Thank you.
And this year for film, the USC Libraries Scripter Award goes to screenwriter James Ivory, author André Aciman for Call Me By Your Name.
you so much. Well, I'm astonished to be here, standing here tonight. Thank you all so much for this award. Thank you for supporting the film. I know most of you probably, well, I won't say that, but a great many of you have seen it and liked it. And it's brought me here, as has André Aciman. We mustn't forget him. He's why really I am standing here tonight. A wonderful author. I left this building exactly 60 years ago when I graduated from the USC Film School, and they had the ceremony out in front of the library. And I haven't been back since, well, not to this building. So it's amazing to come back. I'm glad to be back for an adaptation of a very good book. As you know, I've sort of made my career and my name through adaptations. So, well, thank you all. I want to thank Sony Classics for the wonderful push they've given to this film. So, without further ado, I'll just, again, thank you all. So.
Thank you, Howard and Glenn, and congratulations to our 2018 USC Libraries Scripter Award and Literary Achievement Award winners. Congratulations once more to Ex Libris Award honorees Ronald and Valerie Sugar, and to the family and guests here to help celebrate them this evening. My warmest thanks to all of you for making this such a memorable and meaningful milestone year. And I'd like to thank everyone who contributed to our Book of Wonders. Thanks to your generosity, we raised $26,000. We exceeded our goal for our USC Libraries laptop lending program. I hope you enjoyed the evening. Thank you once again, everyone. I look forward to seeing you next year to celebrate Scripter 31. Good evening.